Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh!
Welcome to Head. Greetings and salutations, everybody. My name is a Zombie Apocalypse, and I was walking down the beach one day and I saw a pineapple float ashore. And a little sponge came out and he said, "Hey, I'm SpongeBob." And I said, "Holy moly, a talking sponge." But then I introduced myself as Steve.
Hey there, gang. I'm Jeterex, and you might think that it's fairly low cost to be a pirate, but it actually costs an arm and a leg.
Tar!
On the open sea, they call me Tim.
Thank you for joining us today on the Head Games Commander podcast, where we spotlight our favorite commanders from the Magic the Gathering. Before we get started, I'm asking you, specifically you know who I'm talking about. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, follow on all the podcast listening apps, because when you do, a baby is born. Yeah. It's true. I heard that's true.
Wow, that's a widely believed fact.
But so Tim, who are we shining our spotlight on today?
Well, I imagine that the intro gave it away, but today we are spotlighting SpongeBob SquarePants. In this episode, we will describe the deck strategy, share what we love about the commander, highlight some of our favorite cards from this deck. So today's deck was built by our friend a Zombie Apocalypse. SpongeBob is a skin over the top of a different card, Jodah the Unifier, which is originally printed in Dominaria United, I think.
Probably.
And we'll pass it over to Steve here to tell us about the commander. What does it do? What's your bracket / rule zero conversation?
All right, so the card we're talking about is SpongeBob SquarePants. He is a Wooburg commander. He is a legendary creature, human wizard. And it says, legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So there's a lot of words on this thing, and
It's a lot of words.
so I want to preface this. This is not a normal Jodah the Unifier deck. This is SpongeBob's tour guide of the multiverse. So every card in this list that's not land is from a Universes Beyond set. And I didn't want to grab a whole bunch from one and just say it's a Universes Beyond deck. I wanted to grab a whole bunch from a whole variety of universes. So I got SpongeBob, I got Chucky, I got Final Fantasy, I got Marvel, I got all. If they made a Universes Beyond set, I probably have a card from here. There's a few that I didn't get because I only have 100 cards and the deck has to work. But I got a lot and it's pretty cool. So my bracket talk is the concept of this deck is a 1. But the problem is there's powerful cards in Universes Beyond. So it's technically a 3 because there is one game changer in it. And I think it's the only game changer that's on the Universes Beyond list, which is the One Ring. And
I think you've actually got more now that you may not have considered, but for a long time it was the only one. But they printed new skins for a bunch of cards in Final Fantasy, including like Psych Rift. But that's a different conversation. But yeah, for a long time it was the only one.
So maybe I'll put a Psych Rift in here now that I know that there's a Final Fantasy skin. Thank you for ruining everyone else's day, Tim.
You're welcome. You're welcome, everyone.
So one last thing before we go into the next section is I tell people that this deck isn't necessarily trying to win. It's here to have a good time, but it can win.
Well, it's also like it's tough because it's SpongeBob, but it's Jodah.
It's
So
Jodah.
if you have a deck with a bunch of legendary creatures, all you have to do is play enough creatures, and your creatures are way bigger than everybody else's, and you can win that way. So against other low power decks, this is always going to seem overpowered, which is why it has to hang out in 3 territory, because otherwise it's going to seem like it's dunking on other meme lists. Because while the Universe is Beyond thing is a bit of a meme, the commander by itself is so powerful because it pumps your whole team and it gives you additional casts every time you cast a legendary creature. It's very powerful, so it can't be understated just how strong the commander is by itself.
But yeah, usually how this deck wins is I'll have like 4 or 5 SpongeBobs. So I cast one spell and cast 4 other spells with it. It's kind of hard to lose after that. So anyway, so Tim, we talked about the bracket talk. Let's go ahead and dive a little deeper. And what do you think the strengths and weaknesses are for this deck?
So I already started talking about my first overall strength, which is that the commander by itself is incredibly strong. If you don't answer it quickly, it takes over the game immediately, because one cast after the commander comes out and you hit something else. Now it's the cascade thing, so there's a bit of randomness to it, but it's still mana value wise just inordinately strong. So the commander by itself being so very good makes the deck easily hang out with decks that it might not be able to, because it's a bit of a meme list. I also think that the sort of goofy build theme might make people less likely to threat assess appropriately. And so they might, and actually it's very funny to me that this is the case with SpongeBob, that it's like Jodah the Unifier, very largely seen as a kill on sight commander, but this is SpongeBob and people go, oh, it's SpongeBob, that's okay. It's not.
It really
it's not.
isn't.
It's just as not okay as if Jodah was on the board, because it's the same card. But for whatever reason, the goofiness of it actually disarms people a little bit, and they don't necessarily threat assess it quite well enough. So those are the strengths. As far as weaknesses, the build restriction that you gave yourself, that you can only put things that are in Universes Beyond content, makes the ramp category slower than it would be, because and I actually think, again, it's been a little bit since you've really upgraded this deck, and I actually do think you have better options now. But really, do they go is that what you want the deck to do? Because we'll talk a little bit about the ramp package later. Do you actually want to change the ramp package? Because you can get a lot of the talismans now because they were in the Final Fantasy precons.
Well, they were in the Doctor Who precons too.
Oh, that's true. That's absolutely right. So you really can, you could do it, but that kind of goes against, I think, what you were trying to do with the deck. But anyway, it does make the ramp a little slow. So the one thing that keeps this deck in check is that it is a little slower than a well-tuned 3 or 4 could be. I also think that with it just being kind of a pile of cards that you like from different universe contents, I think it can be tough to make the most optimal play, because you may have these interactions that you didn't really plan for. You just put the card in the deck because you wanted to see this character in the deck, and therefore didn't necessarily think about the play pattern. So sometimes it can be hard to make the good choices as a result of that.
Yeah, when it came to deck building and stuff, I did put how many card draw spells into consideration. I did put how many ramp pieces into consideration, but it wasn't it needs to be the best of the best, because I specifically wanted a whole bunch of different universes. I didn't want it to be oh, here's just a Lord of the Rings deck, and then here's the tour guide of the Lord of the Rings. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to pull bits from everything. So I was having trouble picking a Fallout card, so I was like, okay, let's just make my ramp package Fallout cards, right? So there's some intentional bad choices in here, but I think it's okay. And that's why I said this deck is technically a 1 on idea, but the cards themselves are just too powerful to say it's a 1. So here's what I thought about the strengths and weaknesses of the deck. Once I get the ball rolling, it's hard to get this thing to stop because there's just so many choices to get rid of. And then I have wonderful cards that either help me get those pieces back or like if they get counters on them, they come back and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like recursion and stuff as well in this list, which is pretty cool. So that's not usually as a problem, but also a strength of this deck. When I play this deck, I'm not expecting to win. I'm playing this deck to get cool stories afterwards, or just like, oh, this was interesting. Who would have saw these two pieces together to make harmony, you know?
And I love that because it's like that's the kind of criticism, you know, the Fortnitification of Magic is one of the larger criticisms of the universe's beyond content. And really, like, this deck just leans right into that. It leans into that and says, okay, isn't it fun on some level for us to do that? For us to say, with these characters who should never be in the same world together are now sharing a battlefield together and fighting against each other. And so I think that's one of the endearing things about the deck is that, first off, SpongeBob is a pretty cringe property to begin with, but like this is the beautiful thing about leaning into that is like we can say confidently like we are cringe, but we are free.
Mm-hmm. So one of the weaknesses that I think that this deck has is since there's no overarching theme to the deck, some of the cards don't mesh together as well as you would see in a 3 or a 4. Now there is some minor sub themes, like there's a lot of humans in the deck list. But other than that, like, yeah, I have like 2 or 3 humans matter cards, and that's about it. So, like, as I said, the cards don't mesh together, but that's okay. And also I feel like even though I have a lot of ramp, it's not good ramp. So it's I'm going to do one thing a turn for the first 5 or 6 turns because like the mana curve in this deck is also relatively high. So like just looking at my 3 drops, I have 16 3 drops, 11 4 drops, and 10 5 drops. So like that's the bulk of my deck. But the cool thing about that is if SpongeBob's out and I cast a 5 or 6 drop, I'm pretty likely to find another 4 or 5 drop, right? So I mean it was all planned very meticulously.
You turned a weakness into a strength. It's excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. The next section is what we like to call the basics. These are the kind of standard categories that you're going to want in any commander deck to make sure that the deck does what you want it to do, that it performs at least relatively consistently. And really, before we go into the numbers, I said this to Steve before we started recording today. I'm always impressed at how well he keeps these numbers high. I struggle with this. I do. Like, I know where the optimal place for a lot of these numbers should be. And I don't get there a lot of the time. I want to play the fun cards, and I don't play the fundamentals enough, and sometimes I end up not being able to interact as a result. One of the reasons this deck can keep up is that it hits all of the marks as far as how many of each of these basic categories it can have. So, Steve, tell us about our basic categories and how many of each you've got.
All right, so for card draw, I have 13. For ramp, I have 14. For single target interaction, I have 13. And for mass interaction, I have 7. Yeah, there's a lot of everything. And well, so here's why, well, specifically for like the single target interaction and mass interaction is my single target interaction isn't always the best. So it costs a little bit more. But if I'm only doing one thing a turn, and everyone else is doing 2 or 3 things a turn, I'm going to be the one that needs to hit that reset button. And then I go crazy, right? So it's kind of has, here I go again, building another control deck by accident. But like, I need to be able to survive long enough to do all the cool things. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about the highlights of the basics. And one of my favorite picks in this section is the card draw category. So Tim, what card did you pick?
I picked an artifact out of Lord of the Rings called Mirror of Galadriel, which is, I think, really great in any kind of Legends Matter strategy, and it's perfect for this deck. So Mirror of Galadriel is 2 generic mana for a legendary artifact. It costs 5 generic and tap to scry 1, then draw a card, but the cost of that ability decreases by 1 to activate for each legendary creature you control. So there's a very real scenario where this taps, scries 1, and draws a card. And
pretty
that
sweet.
seems pretty good, right? For a 2 mana artifact.
Yeah, and one thing I like about this card is, again, with my mana curve the way it is, being able to just cast this on turn 2 and then just let it sit there for a little while, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the early game plays aren't so important for this deck that that I'm not okay with just wasting my turn playing a Mirror of Galadriel.
And I mean, it's not going to get hit by a lot of those mass interaction spells. So it's like, get the mirror down, get some mana rocks down, and then wipe the board. And then you're sitting on a good card draw engine that gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as you build your board back up.
Yeah, I like it a lot. So it's funny how he picked Mirror of Galadriel, because the card draw card that I picked is Galadriel, Light of Valnor. She is a 2 and banned. She is a legendary creature, Elf Noble. She has Alliance. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. One is add 3 green. The second one is put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And then the third one is to scry 2, then draw a card. So this card could have gone in a lot of categories, but I do find myself, depending on what my hand is, the first ones that I look at is either the draw or the ramp. So if I don't have a way to use that 3 green mana, the first thing I'm looking at is to draw a card first, because then I can see if there's other things that I can do. And then I try to get more mana and do other things as well. So she is a bit expensive, but it is reusable card draw. It's only once each turn, but like, man, like adding 3 green mana, or even like the putting on the +1/+1 counters on each creature I control is also really important for one of the cards that we're going to talk about later. But also, it's just a way to pump my team.
Yeah, I like the versatility of this one. Like, this is your Swiss Army knife, and yes, it costs 5 to cast, but really, once you've got it on board, if you are getting 2 creatures out each turn, you're getting an enormous amount of value there, because it's allowing you to get into possibly triple spell territory, or again, so like, it's funny because we'll talk about the basics categories now, but we'll talk about advanced categories later, and you'll find that this card could have slotted into almost any of them, which is pretty remarkable for a 5 mana creature.
Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get into the ramp section. And Tim, I love this card that you picked, and I try to squeeze it into so many decks that I can. But go ahead and tell them what you picked.
Oh, it's tough with this one because I said that one of the weaknesses of this deck is that the ramp package isn't great. And I will make the argument that this is a very conditional card and that I wouldn't consider it to be like really good ramp. But I think it's a great fit for this deck and any kind of deck that can improve it. And again, it's a legendary creature. So if you're playing Legends Matter, this was a very good include. Talking about Lotho, the Corrupt Sheriff. That's Orzhov, or white and a black, for a 2/1 halfling rogue. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you lose a life and create a treasure token. So triggers for you, triggers for each of your opponents if they double spell, and those are untapped treasures, which really matters. The incremental 1 life loss, really not a big deal, but really, under the right circumstances, this is going to get you pretty far ahead just in treasure mana.
Yeah, I just like it a lot because as I said before, this deck has a problem with double spelling itself, but a lot of other decks that you see do double spell. So, and I can get multiple copies of Lotho, which is hilarious.
It is. It's great when that happens.
So, yeah, the card's just great. And like, if I have Lotho and SpongeBob, I cast one legendary spell, I automatically get the treasure.
Yep.
Which is super sweet. It's super easy. Some would say it's barely an inconvenience. So the ramp card that I pick, I cheated a little bit because I picked 7.
Wow.
It's my show. I can do what I want to.
I guess.
I picked all of the bobbleheads.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I did this, so I'm not going to go in depth with what each bobblehead does. I will point out the 2 that I like the most, or the 3 that I like the most. But they're just like, this is my Fallout inclusion, and that's one of the jokes that I tell people when I bring up this deck in the bracket talk is, man, I have 7 bobbleheads as my RAM package, and then everyone just cracks up laughing because it's just silly and absurd. But
it is.
So I'm going to read 2 of them specifically that I like, and the first one is Agility Bobblehead. It is 3 mana artifact bobblehead. It can tap to add 1 mana of any color, and I can pay 3 up to X target creatures you control gain haste until end of turn, and can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste, where X is the number of bobbleheads you control. When your commander pumps things to ungodly numbers and making them unblockable except by creatures with haste, turns out will win you the game. And then the other card that I really like is Perception Bobblehead. Look at the top card. It's the 3 mana bobblehead, taps for any color. You can pay 3. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of bobbleheads you control. You may cast a spell with mana value 3 or less from among them without paying its cost. You put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. Man, like just randomly paying 3 to just try to cast anywhere from I have 16 plus 11 plus 6. That's how many cards that card can cast. It's about half of what my library is. So I think it's just a fun card that, like, oh, I am kind of running out of things to do. Let's swing for the fences kind of card. I like it a lot.
And that's not even restricted by timing, is it? It's like,
it is not.
You may cast a spell with mana value 3 or less from among them without paying its mana cost. You can break timing rules with that.
I sure can. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Not bad. Yeah.
Alrighty, so that was our ramp category, and we're going to go ahead and go straight into single targeted interaction. So Tim, what card did you pick?
I picked Cyber Conversion. This is a 2 mana, 2 blue instant from Doctor Who. It says turn target creature face down. It's a 2/2 Cyberman artifact creature. That may not seem remarkable on its face, but I gotta tell you, this card really shuts down a lot of very difficult to deal with creatures, like anything that is indestructible, but most importantly, it turns your opponent's commander's face down, and then if they don't have a way to deal with it, it's just gonna sit there face down for a while. It's one of the best ways to imprison a commander, and I just don't see this card a lot, so I'm always excited. Like, I've definitely gotten, it's gotten me several times where I've been doing something and had my commander converted. Like, I have no idea what to do with that now. Just no idea.
Yeah. I actually like this card better than like Pongify and Rapid Hybridization. I would rather turn the creature into a 2/2 than have them have a 3/3 for 1 extra mana.
And put their commander back in their command zone.
Right. Yeah. Like, I like the fact that we can just shut off 1 creature. Oh, such a good card. I love that card so much. It is underutilized and underplayed. You guys should definitely be picking that card up. It's like if you're in blue,
yeah, definitely take a look at it. It is way better than it looks.
All right, so my single target interaction is a bit expensive, but it's a fun card. It also ramps me a little bit. And we're talking about Negan the Cold-Blooded. He is 2 and Mardu. When Negan enters the battlefield and target opponent, you and target opponent each secretly choose a creature that player controls. Then those choices are revealed. That player sacrifices those creatures. And then whenever an opponent sacrifices a creature, you create a treasure token. Do you know what I love about this card, Tim? Is the mind games.
I do know it.
Yeah, because I do it all the time. It's the mind games you get to play with this. I usually don't pick the best creature because I know my opponents will.
And it almost always works. Because it's really because you have to consider like this is game theory 101, right? Like this is such a great case study in how complicated a single decision can be. But if you're the opponent facing this particular trigger, like you are thinking to yourself, okay, if I pick anything other than the best creature on my board, it is possible that he's going to get 2 creatures. If I pick the best creature on my board, it is also possible that he's going to get 2 creatures. So it's really like, what do I think that he is going to do? And what do I know about him to make this choice? And in a lot of Commander games, if you're playing against random people or you've never seen this interaction go down, you don't have any information whatsoever. So the safer choice is to pick the one you think that they're most likely to pick, but it's not a safe choice.
It's not that simple either.
Well, it's impossible is what I'm saying. Like it is just like this is a game of know your opponent and know what they're going to use to make the choice, but they don't know you and you could change your mind at any given moment. You could say, okay, I am going to pick them up because you can guarantee that something's going to die as the person casting this card. But what you might get accidentally, which this happens when you play the card a lot, if you don't need to destroy something, if you're thinking to yourself, I don't really care what they destroy, you can pick something out on the fringe and get 2 things out of it instead, which is a great amount of versatility. Yeah, I hate playing against this card.
And in my experience, most of the time, the person that I'm playing against will pick their best creature thinking that I'm going to pick that best creature. It's a fun little mind game. And honestly, it's so flavorful with what this character does.
Yeah. Awfully flavorful. It really is. And I'm just going to tell the audience right now, I could tell you that Steve is not going to pick your best creature, and that won't matter either, because he can 100% change his mind the very next time he plays this card, depending on the situation. So it's like, I could warn you and say, you listen to this episode and you know that he's less likely to pick your best creature, but you don't know, what does he think is your best creature? Yeah, that's why it's such a hard card to play against.
It's all a part of my plan. Alrighty, so now that we've talked about single targeted interaction, let's talk about mass interaction. Tim, what's the card you picked today?
So the card I picked in your deck is called Destroy the Dead, and this is an Evil Dead secret layer, right? Yep. So it's actually Vanquish the Horde. So there were a lot of mass interaction spells, and I definitely want to harken back for a second and remind our viewers that there are 7 mass interaction spells in this deck, which is really remarkable, and just a fantastic number. But in this case, we are talking about, as I said, we're talking about Vanquish the Horde, which I absolutely just lost again.
This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. It costs 6 and 2 white, and then it just destroys all creatures.
So it's just a traditional Wrath that doesn't actually have any bells and whistles at all, except that getting up to 6 creatures on board, that's really only 1.5 creatures per person. This is really easy to cast for 2 white. It is arguably one of the cheapest mass removal spells in white, and so it's a fantastic fit, especially with some of the other cards in the deck that create some protection. Like if you are able to get Heroic Intervention to make your creatures indestructible before you you cast this, you can make it one-sided, and there's other tricks that you can do with it as well. So yeah, just an example of how you can get a good card with this other kind of Universe Beyond skin on it, but this is definitely solid in the list.
And honestly, who wouldn't want a card with Bruce Campbell on it? Bruce Campbell is amazing. I love that guy. So we're gonna go ahead and go into my mess interaction, and I chose Gary the Snail. It is a 7 mana legendary creature, slug horror, and it says at the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control, and then creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on it. And then whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token. And then I can pay a blue and a black to sacrifice a slug to draw a card. Okay, so there is one more card draw spell because I forgot about that last line. So there's 14 card draw spells. But no, turns out Toxrill is a really disgusting card. It is not nice to play against. I haven't been able to put it onto the battlefield yet, but they will rue the day that Gary got when you said bad things about Gary.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
Alrighty. So we're gonna go ahead and I guess we're gonna segue into the deck objectives.
Okay, so as what we mean by deck objectives is these are the more advanced categories of the deck. We like to break down our decks into, this is the game plan. It's kind of a here's point A, point B, point C, etc. We like to try to break it down into at least 4 different categories or objectives. I know this one was a little bit trickier because it has less synergy in it because it is more of a meme list. So we kind of broke the objectives up into more broader categories rather than here's the goal or the game plan of the deck. So we kind of just put the cards in different categories and said, here's what we're going to do in each kind of portion of the game, if that makes sense. So I'll pass it back over to Steve here to give us those 4 objectives.
So objective 1 is to set up my board or survive the early game. Objective 2 is creatures that buff the team. Objective 3 is to make copies of SpongeBob or other awesome creatures that I have. And then objective 4 is overwhelm the opponent. So Tim, what was your choice for the set up or survive the early game?
So I picked a card from Jurassic Park called Permission Denied. This is a white and a blue. It's an instant, and it reads counter target non-creature spell. Your opponents can't cast non-creature spells this turn. So this is remarkable at shutting down something that you don't want your opponent to be doing. Of course, obviously it must be a non-creature thing. So this is going to protect your team if your opponent's trying to do a mass interaction spell and you don't want it to be happening right now. But I really think it's strong in that it makes it so all of your opponents can't cast anything else for the rest of this turn, at least in terms of non-creatures. That really makes it one of the more powerful 2-drop counter spells that exist, period. The fact that this is a Universe Beyond card and that you get to slot it into this list, this is really strong comparatively when you look at the other cards in the list. It's just very, very strong.
Yeah, I like this card a lot, and the fact that I had Covert Go Blue sign it, so I'm not denying your permission. CGB is, okay? I want to make this perfectly clear. There's 2 counter spells in the list. One is counter spell, and the other one is permission denied, and they're both signed by Covert Go Blue. So he says no this time.
I hope he would approve.
And he did. He very much did. All right. So the card that I picked for setup was the Second Doctor. He is a 4 mana, a 2, a white and a blue, legendary creature, Time Lord Doctor. It says players have no maximum hand size. And then it says, at the beginning of your end step, each player may draw a card. Each opponent who does can attack you or permanents you control during their next turn. What I like about this card is it's good card draw for me because I'm just it's drawing me an extra card every turn. But now I get to pose this very interesting question. Do you want to attack me next turn? If you don't, go ahead and draw a card. And with how much interaction that I have, that extra card isn't always going to be bad for me. Because if it gets to the point where it's like, whoa, you're not drawing cards anymore, you want to attack me? Wipe the board. That's the plan. When people stop
I think this is
drawing cards, that's when okay, it's time to wipe the board now.
Sure. And really, like, this is a very interesting card. And because it's one of the Doctor Who cards, I think it's kind of a sleeper. People don't necessarily look at it a whole lot. It reminds me of like Fate Spinner to some extent, where it's like your opponent kind of has to make a choice so that their turn is like, because if everybody else is drawing the card and you're not, just for the privilege of being able to attack you, and if it can't make that attack meaningful, it really kind of feels bad. So I end up with this not great choice on my side of the board when you have this out. So there isn't a great, there isn't a right choice. It's going to be right 100% of the time. Sometimes I'm going to want to draw the card, but that means I can't attack you. So if I draw a card and it makes my attacks advantageous, it's a remarkable little stacks piece that ends up feeling a little group huggy, which again, this is the goofiness that makes this deck a sleeper, is that people see that and they go, oh, you're letting me draw cards now? Okay, I'll keep you around a little bit. And then you've got 16 legends on board. Yeah.
Yep. And then I'll attack you with like a really big second Doctor. Alrighty. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about creatures that buff the team. So Tim, who'd you pick?
I chose something that it doesn't increase the power and toughness of the team, but I still think that it's incredibly important and useful to the deck. So I picked Inigo, Avenging Swordsman, or Samut, Voice of Dissent. This is 3 a red and a green for a 3/4 with flash, double strike, vigilance, and haste. It also says other creatures you control have haste. You can also pay a white and tap this to untap another target creature. Remember, it has vigilance, so it can get that attack in and tap to untap something. I don't know how useful that secondary ability is going to be in this list, but all other creatures have haste. Very, very useful in this list. So, and again, as you said, this is in that magic number category where you cast this for 5 with flash, by the way. And if you've got your commander, it cascades into something 4 or less. So sometimes you're getting another really good 4-drop for the price of just the 5 mana you spent to cast this. So Inigo is maybe the most interesting and funnest character in that movie, and they chose a card to put his skin over that fits very well as far as I'm concerned.
So I'm looking at my list right now, and I was seeing how many creatures have tap abilities. There are 3. Birds of Paradise, Inquisitor Greyfax. He can tap and untap, but he also has vigilance, so it's kind of funny.
Yep.
And then where'd the third one go? I don't remember where
Plankton?
he went. Plankton. So 4. I forgot about Plankton. And then Gloin also has tap, sacrifice a treasure to go target creature.
Yeah, I mean, not any abilities that you're really going to care about a whole lot. So let's
Nothing
just say that our
crazy.
friend Inigo just makes all of your creatures hasty. Okay, let's just rest with that.
Also cascades pretty well.
It does. Fantastic.
It does.
And actually,
pretty well.
it kind of cascades very well into your choice for this category. So what was your creature that buffs the team?
So I picked Rick, Steadfast Leader. He is a 2 and 2 white legendary human soldier. As Rick enters the battlefield, I choose 2 abilities from among First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. Humans you control have each of the chosen abilities. Then as long as you control 4 or more humans, creatures I control get +2/+2. Okay. It turns out giving all my creatures lifelink is just game ending regardless.
It really is.
With Jodah on the board, because I didn't do a count of how many humans there are, but there's a lot. Not all my creatures are humans, but there's enough that I can consistently have. Even the 4 is pretty easy for the most part, because like I have creatures that make 1/1 human creature tokens and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that just make Rick so good. And then when they're getting pumped by SpongeBob and I have lifelink, it's just game over from there. This is a game-winning card.
Yeah, I think this is something that happens a lot with Legends Matter lists, is that you end up with Humans Matter. And it's just because really it is maybe the most populous creature type in the game, period. And certainly when we are adapting other properties, like when there are so many of the universes beyond that have characters that are humans or kind of human adjacent, and they don't have a really good kind of creature type to slam on there. So they just get human as a de facto, because they're always looking for that modern thing where it's like species and then class. And in this case, you've got it with Rick because he's a human soldier, right? He's got both of the things, but there's a lot of things that again are incidentally human that end up with, like, I think like Black Panther, for example, like incidentally human. And there, you know, a lot of other examples as well. So you have more than enough to make it work. And that's because of this thing that happens in Legends Matter lists.
Yeah. So what a fun card. What a fun card. All right. So we're going to go ahead and go into Objective 3, making more SpongeBob. So how are we doing this, Tim?
Okay, so the one that I chose is called Auton Soldier. This is a Doctor Who card, 6 mana total, 4 and 2 blue, for an artifact creature that is an alien and a soldier, not a human here, at least not till it comes in. You may have Auton Soldier enter at the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it isn't legendary and is an artifact in addition to its other types, and it has Myriad.
The Myriad.
And for the folks at home, Myriad reads, whenever it attacks for each opponent other than a defending player, you may put a token that's a copy of this creature onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking for that player or a planeswalker they control. Exile the tokens. So it goes on the battlefield, gives your creatures haste. You've got a Jodah on board, slam an Auton Soldier. It's got haste. It is a Jodah. It makes 2 more Jodahs. You've got a total of 4 by the end of the turn. Hilarity ensues.
Yeah, sadly, I don't get to cast a legendary creature in the middle of combat, so I get 4 or 5. So the original, the clone, 2 Myriad tokens. Yeah, so I don't get to cascade 4 times in the middle of combat unless if I'm casting Indigo. If I cast Indigo, I can cascade 4 times. But it turns out when for each legendary creature you control, they're getting +4/+4 is usually enough to say good night.
It is. It is. If you've got 4 Jodahs and they're just making your creatures enormous, I guess that's okay.
Alrighty. So the card that I picked, I cannot talk enough about this card. It's such a fun card. What I like about it, well, let's tell you what it is. It's Sean, Father of Sense. It's 3, a blue and a red. Legendary creature, human scientist. Whenever you attack, you may create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of target attacking legendary creature you control other than Sean, except it's not legendary and it's a synth artifact and creature in addition to its other types. And then whenever he leaves, exile all other synth tokens you control. I can play him on turn 5 and attack with something, and I get it. He does not have to attack. Sean, Father of Synths, I'm sorry. He is an enchantment. He will never need to attack, and it's the best thing in the world because he doesn't have to attack. I mean,
unless he's a 12/12, he might attack, but your point is valid in that you get the trigger if anything attacks, although you do have to copy an attacking legendary creature. But he doesn't have to. You're right. He doesn't have to be the one attacking, but you attack with Sean. when it's
Yeah.
a 12-12 or a 15-15. It doesn't just sit there.
Yeah. But I mean, just like the choices of creatures that I get to choose. Imagine
Yeah.
Negan the Cold-Blooded being copied,
Ugh.
or
Stop.
Zangief the Red Cyclone,
Oh, that would be funny.
Galadriel, Eowyn Shield Maiden. Like, there's so Tifa,
Mm-hmm.
Rick Steadfast Leader. I've done it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Multiple Ricks is very good because it just makes your humans bigger, right? And each one gets bigger. So it's like, it's very funny to think of like synthetic robot Rick's, Rick Grimes all running around saying the same thing.
Coral.
It's not a democracy anymore. It's not a democracy anymore.
Coral.
That is why Universes Beyond is funny. Right there. That's why it's funny.
That's why this deck exists.
Yep.
Anyway, so we're finally going into the final objective of the deck, and is overwhelm the opponents. So Tim, how do we overwhelm the opponents?
One of the ways you just mentioned, it's our old friend Tifa, martial artist from Final Fantasy VII. 1 and Naya, that's 1, a red, a green, and a white, total of 4 mana for a 4/4 human monk. Has melee, which reads, whenever this creature attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each opponent you attack this combat. So if you attack everybody, she becomes a 7/7.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bottom half reads, when one or more creatures you control with power 7 or greater deal combat damage to a player, untap all your creatures, and if it's the first combat phase, you get another one. So here's a 4 mana legendary creature that gives you an extra combat if you meet a very easy to meet set of circumstances. So this is how you overwhelm your opponent. You kill somebody, you get an extra combat, you get the other person as well.
Yeah, it turns out power of 7 is not that difficult when your commander just pumps everything.
It's true.
Yeah.
So what is it? This your commander and one other legendary, and Tifa's a 7/7?
Yeah. I mean, Jodah or SpongeBob is a 7/7 with just, is it other? I have to double check.
Nope. Number of legendary creatures you control.
Yeah, so just those two, if SpongeBob gets through, I get an additional combat. Gross.
Yep.
Gross. So as I said, this deck is a meme, but it has powerful cards in it.
No kidding. And how, sir, would you then overwhelm your opponents?
You know, there's a really cool game out there called Fortnite. And
we've gone full Fortnite. It happened.
We went full Fortnite, and it's just a battle royale. What can I say? It is a 2 and 2 green enchant sorcery. It says until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1, gain trample, and infect.
Oh, infect, you say?
Infect, I say, yes.
That reminds me of a card that they printed a while ago. What was that?
I believe it was Triumph of the Hordes.
That's what that card is. Yep.
Yeah.
It's hilarious to me that they gave the Fortnite card, or I'm sure this was a secret layer, right? That like one of the secret layer Fortnite cards was Triumph of the Hordes, just like the one shot end the game green card.
The other Fortnite card I have in here is the Shrinking Storm, and it's just Wrath of God.
Mm-hmm. Much less impressive comparatively.
I mean, they both cost 4.
Mm-hmm.
They do both cost 4. They're both sorceries. Maybe Fortnite is just a sorcery speed game. Who would have thought?
So that is the advanced deck objectives and the cards that we really liked for it. We could have spent a lot more time in this category because the deck really does have a lot of fun entries in each of these categories. We're going to keep moving on to our honorable mentions. These are cards that we just wanted to talk about. Maybe they didn't fit into the other categories very smoothly, but things that we just wanted to gush a little bit before we wrap up for today. So Steve, what is your honorable mention?
So my honorable mention is a Ghostbusters card.
Who are you gonna call?
Yeah, the Ghostbusters, quite obviously. It's called Escape Containment. It's 4 and a black. It's a sorcery, and it says demonstrate. Mill 5 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. There's times with this deck that I just was like, 5 mana, let's spin the wheel, let's see what I get.
Yeah.
And it works. It works.
It's a little risky, and then, you can also, if you feel like it, spin the wheel twice if you want to let somebody else do it too. If you're playing against somebody who you're like, you don't seem to have scary creatures in your deck, I'm going to let you do this.
Well, so I have 30 creatures in the deck. So 1 in 3 cards is a creature.
Yep.
So that's why I'm more willing to play that risky game, is because I know 1 in 3 cards will be a creature. And because that's how I stack my deck, because I'm a magician. That's not actually true. I do magic tricks, but I don't cheat. Anyway, what's the card you wanted to talk about?
I wanted to talk about Miracle Max Unemployed, because he used to work for the king until the king's stinking son fired him. Miracle Max is a skin over Marquesa the Black Rose. So this is 1, a blue, a black, and a red for a 3/3 human wizard with Dethrone. Other creatures you control have Dethrone. And remind me that Dethrone is if you attack the player with the most life, the creature gets a +1/+1 counter?
Correct.
And then the second part of this card reads, whenever a creature you control with a counter on it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So I've just seen this card make destroying your board impossible. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's obviously Miracle Max's hilarious character from a fantastic movie that everybody should want in your Grixis deck. And now I'm wondering why it isn't in the one I just built. Probably because it doesn't make sense, but
it really doesn't.
Point being, the card is amazing at creating kind of a barrier to your opponents being able to deal with your stuff, because sometimes when you get that thing back, it's actually worse for your opponent. So really, really excellent include, and opportunity cost is pretty low, and Miracle Max is a terrific character.
Let me put you in Magic Christmas Land. Let's talk about, like, I play Miracle Max. After Galadriel, I give all my creatures +1/+1. I can offensively use board wipes now.
Yep.
It's so much fun. It's such a good thing, and it's almost as good as mutton, lettuce, and tomato, where the meat is so tender.
Where the mutton is nice and lean, and the tomatoes they're so perky. I love that.
I love it. So we're gonna go ahead and go into cards to consider. So I haven't really talked too much. I haven't upgraded it really since Spider-Man. I do have one Spider-Man include already. It is the Sinister Six. Because I thought it was
Behold
a fun
the
card.
Sinister Six.
Yes, yeah. Behold the Sinister Six. But I haven't really looked too much into the Spider-Man set. And then when I did, I think we found a couple. That could go.
I found one while we were talking. I found another one while we were talking. So we'll get back to that in a second. Well, because it just occurred to me how good this card is generically, and then how remarkably good it is in your deck. Okay, so the first card I'm going to talk about that I had already planned for the episode is Gwenom Remorseless. So this is a 5 mana black creature. It's 3 and 2 black. It's a 4/4 symbiote spider hero, so it's not a human, but it is a 4/4 with death touch and life lifelink. When Gwenom attacks until end of turn, you may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may play cards from the top of your library. If you cast a spell, you pay life rather than paying its mana value. So this is for for those who play Commander regularly, this is essentially Bolas' Citadel on a body. The extra benefit there being that it is a legendary creature that you cast for 5 that triggers into something else that you could also has lifelink. Like it just synergizes with all the other pieces. And I think having Bolas' Citadel on a legendary creature body in this deck, in the Universes Beyond theme, this is a pretty good fit for me.
Yeah, I like the card a lot in general. And this deck will have a surprisingly amount of top deck manipulation. I don't get to choose what's on top, but I get to draw a card occasionally. And I get to do that a lot. Which is really nice. So like if the land problem gets in the way, I'm like, oh well, I'll just crack this clue from that I made from Max or something. And be able to kind of get past those other cards and stuff. So What a great include. So I picked a second card now then too, since you picked a second card.
Excellent.
So the first card I picked is Imposter Syndrome. It's just another way of making more SpongeBob. So Imposter Syndrome is 4 and 2 blue. It's an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. Boy, let me tell you, most of my legendary creatures are good if I have more than one of them. In this case, I would attack with Sean just to get a second Sean.
There you go. Yeah, I think we talked about it before, and I know that it's a bit expensive, but like in this already meme list, like I really think that this card belongs in the list because it just does this incredibly over the top thing when you do get to cast it. So yeah. I like, and it is itself a meme. It's the Spider-Mans pointing at each other. It's like it was built for this deck.
Alrighty, so we are in card 2 for cards to consider.
Yeah. This undiscovered territory, and this occurred to me. If those who were watching saw my facial expression about 5 minutes ago when we were talking about copying your commander and how you often get non-legendary copies of it. This card gets around that. So the card is Chameleon, Master of Disguise. This is a 4-mana clone-ish out of Spider-Man. So 3 and a blue. It's a 2/3. You may have Chameleon enter as a copy of a creature you control, except his name is Chameleon, Master of Disguise. So he retains his legendary status, but can be another copy of your commander. You can also mayhem it for 1 cheaper. I don't know if you have a lot of or any discard synergy in the deck, but it doesn't matter. It's still for the same rate as our old friend Clone. It is a clone that clones a legendary creature, but doesn't die the legend rule because it keeps its name. So you can have a second legendary copy of Jodah with Chameleon.
Oh, that's so freaking good.
It's so good, and it costs 4. It's so 4. So you cast Jodah, you cast a 5-drop, you cascade into this. Now you've got 2 Jodahs. Get out of here!
Oh no! Oh no! What am I gonna do to these people? All right,
this card. Don't sleep on this card. Anybody who's listening at this point, and if you are, thank you. You're amazing. Don't sleep on this card. It's an uncommon from the Spider-Man set. Go pick a couple up. This is going to be a standard staple. I promise.
Alrighty, so the second card on my list, and this was going to be the card that I talked about at first, but then Tim told me about Imposter Syndrome, so I had to jump ship. But now I get to talk about it anyway. We're talking about the Spectacular Spider-Man. He is a white and a colorless legendary creature, Spider-Human hero with Flash, and then Spectacular Spider-Man gains flying until end of turn. Honestly, not completely irrelevant because
nope. Not relevant at
all. And then I can pay 1, sacrifice the Spectacular Spider-Man. Creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So it's just another heroic intervention because there is a heroic intervention in the list. Now I get to have 2. And
and you cast this and it finds your plankton.
It does find my plankton. Oh, there's so many different colors Spider-Mans. Ooh.
Oh, it is that's the sought after card. There's I gotta be 15 or 16 different arts for that card. It's a whole bunch.
Oh wow, I didn't realize there was so many.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of it, and in varying grades of expense too. You could spend an awful lot of money on that card if you were inclined.
Oh, I probably will. Anyway.
So friends, opponents, we have concluded our tour guide of the multiverse today. It is time for us to log out a fortnight and go to bed because our mom said so.
Oh no.
Thank you so very kindly for spending time with us on the Head Games Commander podcast. Remember, you can support this show and all of our other content by watching this and other videos on our YouTube page, by checking out our streams on Twitch and YouTube. You can find all those links in the description.
But before we scoop things up, we want to hear from you, the think tank. And the question is, why, SpongeBob? Why? What commanders would you like us to see us build and spotlight in the future? Let us know in the comments below. And have a wonderful day. Bye!